Hello, and welcome back, dear friends, to Meghan and Harry Tales. I'm your host, Adrian, and today we're diving into some curious new claims making the rounds about Prince Harry's past and how it all ties into the narrative of Meghan and Harry today. We've got quite a lot to unpack, so settle in as we explore these latest attempts to rewrite history and diminish the powerful love story that Harry and Meghan have built together. Now, ex-royal butler Grant Harold has been busy stirring headlines again, this time opening up about Harry's old romance with Chelsy Davy. According to him, Harry, Chelsy, William and Kate once enjoyed cosy little double dates in pubs together. He even suggested that they were a happy family that got along. Harold painted this picture of harmonious relationships, describing casual evenings where the four of them would retreat from royal duties to enjoy simple pleasures like any other young couples. But let's pause here for a moment and really examine what's happening. Why is Grant Harold choosing to share these intimate details now? What purpose does it serve to paint this romanticized picture of Harry's past relationships? The timing feels particularly pointed, doesn't it? These revelations come at a moment when Meghan and Harry continue to build their independent lives, when they're thriving in their California sanctuary, when their Archewell Foundation is making real impact around the world. Well, isn't that interesting? Of course, it raises the question, how would Meghan Markle feel about these so-called revelations? Should she feel threatened or upset? Let's be honest, absolutely not. Meghan is a woman who has stood by Harry's side through real storms, through a toxic media circus, and through a royal institution that often treated her with cruelty. A few nostalgic comments about a long-gone relationship pale in comparison to the reality Meghan and Harry have built together. Think about what Meghan has actually endured. She faced relentless tabloid scrutiny from the moment her relationship with Harry became public. Every outfit choice, every gesture, every word was dissected and often twisted into something negative. She dealt with racist undertones in media coverage that no royal bride before her had to face. She navigated a complex family dynamic where she was expected to immediately understand centuries-old traditions and protocols. And through it all, she maintained her dignity, her grace, and her commitment to service. Let's remember Harry himself has been crystal clear. Chelsy Davy didn't want the royal life. She chose a different path, one outside the intense spotlight. And you know what? Good for her. That takes self-awareness and courage too. But Meghan, on the other hand, courageously stepped into that world, endured it, and ultimately chose freedom alongside Harry. That's not something to be insecure about, it's something to admire. Chelsy Davy made a choice that was right for her life and her values. She recognized early on that the royal fishbowl wasn't compatible with the life she wanted to build. She pursued her legal career, found love outside the royal circle, and built a life that brings her fulfillment. There's no shame in that choice. In fact, it shows remarkable self-awareness. But Meghan made a different choice. She chose to take on one of the most challenging roles in public life. She chose to represent the Commonwealth, to champion causes close to her heart, to use her platform for good. She chose to become a mother to future members of the royal family. These weren't easy decisions, and they came with sacrifices that Chelsy never had to consider. And let's also look at the bigger picture here. Grant Harold's remark about them being a happy family that got along feels a little sugar-coated, doesn't it? If William and Kate truly fostered such harmony back then, why couldn't they show the same kindness and support when Harry introduced Meghan? Why couldn't they extend that so-called warmth to someone who was supposed to become Harry's life partner? This is where the narrative starts to unravel. If the Cambridge household was so welcoming, so inclusive, so ready to embrace Harry's romantic partners, then what changed when Meghan entered the picture? Were they only comfortable with relationships they deemed safe relationships with people who looked like them, came from their world, understood their unspoken rules? The stark difference in treatment raises uncomfortable questions about unconscious bias, about who gets to be welcomed into the inner circle and who faces skepticism from day one. Chelsy Davy was familiar. She came from a similar background, understood the rules of their social circle, posed no threat to established hierarchies. Meghan represented change, diversity, a different way of thinking about what a modern royal family could look like. The truth is, Meghan never got that happy family treatment. She got skepticism, criticism, and isolation instead. So when I hear about these cozy pub outings with Chelsy, I don't hear nostalgia, I hear hypocrisy. Because Meghan wasn't welcomed with the same open arms, despite her loyalty and love for Harry. Consider the leaked stories about Meghan making Kate cry, when the opposite was actually true. Think about the rumours about Meghan being demanding or difficult, when former colleagues consistently describe her as professional and kind. Remember the criticism of her independence and ambition, qualities that would be celebrated in any other context but were somehow threatening when embodied by Harry's American bride. Where was the protective instinct from William and Kate when Meghan was being torn apart in the press? Where were the private reassurances, the public shows of support, the big brother and sister energy that Harry clearly needed during that difficult time? Instead, we heard silence, or worse, leaked stories that seemed designed to further isolate Meghan within the family structure. Now, shifting gears slightly, there's also been chatter about a new biography on Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh. Some commentators are trying to draw comparisons between Sophie and Meghan, suggesting that Meghan could have followed Sophie's example, giving up her career completely to fit into the royal mould. This narrative suggests that Sophie found the secret formula for royal success, and if only Meghan had been more compliant, more willing to completely transform herself, she could have found happiness within the system. But let's examine that carefully. Sophie Wessex did indeed face a huge scandal early on in her royal life. She was caught in a sting operation by a tabloid journalist posing as a potential client, making questionable comments about politicians and members of the royal family. The resulting headlines were devastating. She faced intense scrutiny about potential conflicts of interest between her PR career and her royal duties. Eventually, she stepped back from her PR career to focus solely on royal duties. The lesson people like to repeat is that you can't be half in and half out. But here's what's missing from this comparison: context, nuance, and the reality of different historical moments. Sophie's scandal happened in 2001, a different era for both media coverage and public expectations. The 24-hour news cycle existed but wasn't as brutal. Social media wasn't amplifying every story into a global conversation. The nature of celebrity and public scrutiny was fundamentally different. But here's where I respectfully push back. Sophie's story is Sophie's story. Meghan's story is entirely different. Meghan wasn't looking to be half in, half out. Meghan and Harry were looking for a balanced, modern role that would allow them to serve while also protecting their mental health and their family's privacy. That wasn't a selfish choice, it was a progressive vision. Their proposal was actually quite reasonable when you examine it closely. They wanted to continue their royal duties, maintain their patronages, represent the Queen and the Commonwealth. But they also wanted financial independence and the ability to live part-time outside the UK. They wanted to control their own media narrative and choose which events to attend based on their effectiveness and personal values. This wasn't about abandoning duty, it was about redefining what duty could look like in the 21st century. They envisioned a model that could have been beneficial for the monarchy too, showing that royal service could evolve, that it could attract younger, more diverse audiences, that it could be both traditional and innovative. And let's be clear, Sophie had the privilege of being quietly absorbed into the royal fold after her scandal. The media moved on, the public forgave, and she was given space to rebuild her reputation through steady, consistent royal work. Meghan never got that luxury. Instead, the tabloids weaponized every move she made. Meghan wasn't allowed to make a single misstep without being branded a villain. Comparing her to Sophie ignores the blatant double standards Meghan faced from day one. The difference in treatment is stark and undeniable. When Sophie faced scandal, it was treated as a learning experience, a growing pain in her journey toward becoming a respected royal. When Meghan faced criticism, much of it manufactured or exaggerated, it was treated as evidence of fundamental character flaws. Sophie was given the benefit of the doubt. Meghan was assumed to have malicious intent. This double standard extended to everything: their fashion choices, their charitable work, their family relationships. Sophie's evolution from PR executive to dedicated royal was celebrated as admirable growth. Meghan's transition from actress to royal was scrutinized for signs of Hollywood ego and American entitlement. What Meghan and Harry chose was not Hollywood, as critics like to sneer. What they chose was freedom. The freedom to build Archewell, to champion mental health, to launch Meghan's successful lifestyle brand, and to parent Archie and Lilibet away from the cruelty of the British press. That's not frivolous, that's survival, and it's legacy building. Let's talk about what they've actually accomplished since leaving royal duties. Archewell has partnered with organisations around the world focusing on issues like mental health, digital wellness and community building. Harry's work with Better Up and his mental health advocacy has reached millions of people. Meghan's podcast Archetypes sparked important conversations about how women are perceived and labelled in society. Their Netflix projects have brought attention to important stories from the Invictus Games to their own experiences within the royal system. These aren't vanity projects. They're carefully chosen endeavours that align with their values and allow them to make meaningful impact. Think about it. Harry spent years in the military, risking his life in Afghanistan. He founded the Invictus Games, which has transformed the lives of wounded veterans around the world. Meghan built her career from the ground up, becoming a self-made actress and humanitarian. She was a UN Women advocate, worked with World Vision, supported numerous charitable causes long before she met Harry. Together, they've created initiatives that reach far beyond the UK, impacting people globally. To reduce all of that to Hollywood is insulting and frankly dismissive of the meaningful work they've done. Their move to California wasn't about seeking fame or fortune, they already had both. It was about creating a sustainable life where they could parent their children safely, pursue meaningful work and maintain their mental health. It was about escaping a system that had proven itself incapable of protecting them or treating them fairly. And as for Sophie, never putting a foot wrong, well, let's not forget that she only thrived once the media decided to stop targeting her. The British press made a collective decision to move on from her scandal and focus elsewhere. Meghan was never given that grace. The relentless hounding only grew worse until she and Harry had no choice but to walk away. So in many ways, Meghan is far stronger. She stood up for herself and her family in the face of pressure that would have broken most people. Sophie's success within the royal system speaks to her resilience and dedication, but it also speaks to the fact that she was ultimately allowed to succeed. The media ecosystem around her stabilized, the public narrative shifted, and she was given space to do the work without constant scrutiny of her motives or character. Meghan was never afforded that same grace period. If anything, the scrutiny intensified over time. Each success was treated with suspicion, each misstep was magnified, each attempt at independence was seen as evidence of disloyalty or selfishness. So what do we take from all this? Grant Harold can reminisce about pub nights with Chelsy all he wants. Biographers can compare Meghan to Sophie all they like. But none of it changes the reality that Harry chose Meghan and Meghan chose Harry. Together, they have chosen a life of truth, authenticity and courage. And Harry's choice wasn't made lightly. He had experienced life within the royal system for over 30 years. He understood its benefits and its costs. He had seen how it protected some and failed others. When he chose Meghan, he chose with full awareness of what that choice might require. That's why Meghan doesn't need to be hurt by comments about Harry's past. She knows the truth. She has the husband, the children, the life that Harry fought so hard to build with her. And let's not forget, Harry himself has repeatedly said that meeting Meghan changed everything for him. She gave him clarity, purpose, and a partner who truly understood him. In his own words, Meghan helped him see possibilities he had never considered before. She helped him understand that duty and happiness didn't have to be mutually exclusive, that service could take many forms, that love could be both the source of great strength and the catalyst for necessary change. Their partnership has been tested in ways that most relationships never face under international scrutiny, family pressure, media bombardment, and institutional resistance. The fact that they've emerged stronger, more committed to each other and their shared values, speaks to something profound and unshakable between them. In the end, these so-called revelations are nothing more than distractions. They're attempts to rewrite history in a way that sidelines Meghan's importance in Harry's journey. But the truth is undeniable. Harry and Meghan are the future they chose for themselves. And it's a future rooted in love, not outdated royal expectations. Every time we see these attempts to diminish their relationship, whether through nostalgic stories about past relationships or unfavourable comparisons to other royals, we're witnessing a kind of historical revisionism. The goal is to suggest that Harry made the wrong choice, that Meghan was the problem, that everything would have been perfect if only different decisions had been made. But this narrative ignores Harry's own agency, his own growth, his own understanding of what he needed for a fulfilling life. It treats him like a passive figure swept along by circumstances rather than a thoughtful adult who made careful decisions based on his values and experiences. So, dear listeners, whenever you see headlines about Harry's ex-girlfriends or about how Meghan should have followed someone else's path, remember this Meghan and Harry's story is about carving out their own destiny. They didn't accept the roles handed to them by an institution stuck in the past. Instead, they built something new, something hopeful. They're showing us what's possible when people refuse to accept systems that don't serve them, when they're willing to sacrifice status and security for authenticity and peace. They're demonstrating that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is protect your family from environments that refuse to change, even when that protection comes at great personal cost. And that, my friends, is why Meghan doesn't need to be jealous of Chelsy Davy or compared to Sophie Wessex. She is Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, mother to Archie and Lilibet, advocate, entrepreneur and partner to Prince Harry. Her story is unique and it's powerful. She's not defined by what she gave up or what she couldn't make work within existing systems. She's defined by what she's building: a media company that amplifies important voices, a lifestyle brand that celebrates accessibility and authenticity, a family foundation that creates real change in the world. So let Grant Harold share his memories. Let biographers publish their comparisons. Meghan and Harry are too busy thriving to worry about what might have been. Their focus is on what is, and that's their beautiful life together in California, surrounded by love, purpose, and freedom. They're raising their children with an understanding of service that extends beyond traditional boundaries. They're building wealth and influence that they can use for causes they believe in. They're creating content that starts conversations about mental health, social justice, and human connection. They're living proof that there are many ways to make a positive impact in the world. And that, dear friends, is the truth that we hold on to here at Meghan and Harry Tales. A truth that shows us not the distractions of the past, but the strength of the present and the promise of the future. Every time we choose to focus on their actual accomplishments, rather than manufactured drama, we're participating in a more honest, more hopeful narrative. We're recognizing that love stories don't always follow traditional scripts, that courage sometimes looks like walking away from what's expected, and that the most powerful revolutions often begin with two people deciding they deserve better. Thank you so much for joining me today. As always, I'm Adrian, and I'll be back soon with more stories that celebrate the courage, resilience, and love of Meghan and Harry. Until next time, take care and never forget, love always wins.